Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rome.
In our top story, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has detailed Israel's 3 prerequisites for peace with the Palestinians. In an opinion piece published in the Wall Street Journal, Netanyahu wrote that in order for the war to end, Hamas must be completely destroyed, Gaza must be demilitarized, and Palestinian society must be de-radicalized. Netanyahu noted that Hamas is a key Iranian proxy that has vowed to repeat the October 7th massacre again and again. So there is no scenario that Israel can make peace or live alongside the terror group. Netanyahu dismissed the notion that the Palestinian Authority could control the Gaza Strip, saying the PA funds and glorifies terrorism, and it educates children to seek the destruction of Israel. Netanyahu said that for the foreseeable future, Israel will have to retain overriding security responsibility in the coastal enclave. He concluded by saying that once Hamas is destroyed, Gaza is demilitarized, and Palestinian society begins a de-radicalization process, Gaza can be rebuilt, and the prospects of a broader peace in the Middle East will become a reality.
The Foreign Affairs Committee of the United States House of Representatives will launch an investigation into the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for its connection to the Hamas terror group. Representative Darrell Issa explained that there is extensive evidence of a troubling connection between UNRWA and Hamas, and it is far deeper than we know. He called on Congress to investigate and uncover the extent of what UNRWA knew, what it did, and what it may be hiding from the world. The UN agency is dedicated to perpetuating the Palestinian refugee problem and has long been accused of supporting Arab terror against Jews. Weapons and contraband have been stored in UNRWA facilities, and one of its employees reportedly held a hostage abducted from Israel on October 7th in his home in Gaza. In 2018, former U.S. President Donald Trump cut funding to what he called the irredeemably flawed organization, but President Joe Biden rejoined UNRWA in 2021 and has given it at least $730 million.
Francesca Albanese, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Palestinian territories, has made the outlandish claim that Arab attacks on Israeli troops are justified. Speaking to the Washington Free Beacon, Albanese said that these attacks cannot be classified as terrorism and that the killing of Israeli soldiers is not a crime. Albanese released a book less than 2 months after the October 7th Hamas massacre of 1,200 people and the abduction of 240 to Gaza. In it, she asserts that Israel is to blame for the war and that the demand to release hostages, including children and babies, is unacceptable.
The International Red Cross has named Pierre Krachenbuhl, the former head of UNRWA, as its next Director General. Krachenbuhl resigned from UNRWA in 2019 after the French news service, AFP, revealed that he was under investigation for credible and corroborated allegations of serious ethical abuses. Critics say this controversial appointment further demonstrates the organization's dysfunction. The Red Cross has been harshly criticized for its failure to deliver medications or even to visit the hostages taken by Hamas terrorists from Israel into Gaza on October 7th. In addition, the Red Cross has been accused of an anti-Israel bias in its war against the Iranian-backed terror group in Gaza.
A senior commander for the Iranian Revolutionary Guards has been killed in an airstrike in Syria attributed to the Israeli Air Force. Brigadier General Saeed Reza Mousavi was responsible for coordinating military cooperation between Iran and its proxy armies in Syria and Lebanon, and arming militias, including Hezbollah. He was killed in a precision strike in Damascus last week. Tehran confirmed the death of the high-ranking officer and vowed revenge against the Jewish state. Israel did not confirm its involvement in the assassination, but defense officials did say that Mousavi was heavily involved in Tehran's increased efforts to transfer weapons to Shiite militias in the region.
The barbaric Hamas war has apparently awakened something within the Jewish people. More Jews have gone up to the Temple Mount than before the onset of the war with Hamas. The Bayadenu organization, which works to raise awareness regarding Mount Moriah, said it anticipated that fewer people would bravely answer the call to ascend the site due to fear of increased Muslim attacks against Jews, but instead it saw a dramatic increase in visitation. Tensions with the Arabs have risen sharply since October 7th, but that did not prevent faithful Jews and Christians from coming to the site where both Jewish temples once stood. Bayadenu reported that more than 15,600 Jews have visited the Temple Mount this year. It's the holiest site in Judaism, but is controlled by the Islamic Waqf that heavily restricts non-Muslim access to Mount Moriah and strictly forbids non-Muslims from praying there. Nevertheless, more Jews and Christians are going to the Temple Mount to pray.
The ingenious idea to create playing cards of Israel's most wanted Hamas terrorists has taken Israel and the world by storm. Originally created to entertain IDF troops, these playing cards have become all the rage. The cards depict the infamous Hamas terror leaders as the cowards they really are, hiding in tunnels and living off stolen aid funds while the people of Gaza starve.
The October 7th Hamas massacre in Israel has resulted in more Jews returning to the land of their patriarchs and matriarchs. The aftermath of the Iranian-backed genocide has seen a dramatic rise in anti-Semitism around the world, and Jews outside of Israel have reported feeling unsafe in the diaspora. Israeli authorities reported that 2,600 Jews have made Aliyah, or immigrated to Israel, since October 7th, and many more have expressed an interest in returning to their historic homeland. Major General Doron Almag, the chairman of the Jewish Agency, recently told Israeli media that his organization is expecting 1 million new immigrants to Israel during the next few years due to increasing anti-Semitism in Jewish communities around the world.
Bishop Joshua Malenge, a Kenyan evangelical leader and president of the Africa-Israel Initiative, visited the Jewish state last week as part of an African solidarity delegation to Israel. Founded in 2011, the Africa-Israel Initiative promotes joint social and economic development projects and faith-based diplomacy. It also serves as a two-way street of blessing between Africa and Israel. Malenge told the Jerusalem Post that he came to the Jewish state to see what is not being said in the media so he can speak the truth about Israel across Africa. The Christian population of Africa has skyrocketed to nearly 50%, and this community holds Zion as crucially important to their faith. Reverend Dennis Tumbe, the African director of the Israel Allies Foundation, said, "Our father Abraham navigated to Africa during the days of great droughts, and he came out with a lot of resources." He said, "We believe that Africa not only has a safe space for the Jews, it also holds prosperity for them as well."
Israel continues to be the only place in the Middle East where Christianity is growing and thriving. According to Israel's Central Bureau of Statistics, the Christian community has steadily grown over the last few years and is strengthening in numbers. End-of-the-year data reveals that there are 187,900 Christians living in the Jewish state. This is an increase of 1.3% since last year. The CBS noted that in 2021, the Christian population increased by 1.4%, and in 2022, it grew by 2%. Many Arab Christians have fled Gaza and areas controlled by the Palestinian Authority due to persecution, and they found freedom to safely practice their faith in Israel. The Open Doors organization, which reports on Christian persecution, released its annual World Watch list of places where Christians are discriminated against. It revealed that many Muslim-majority countries persecute Christians. In fact, an interactive map of Christian persecution shows Israel is the only Middle Eastern country not on the watch list.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sent warm holiday greetings to Christians around the world and thanked them for supporting the Jewish state in its war against Hamas. Netanyahu explained that the Jewish state is facing monsters who murdered children in front of their parents and raped and beheaded women. They burned babies alive and took children hostage. Netanyahu said that this battle is one of civilization against barbarism, and that he knows that Israel has the support of Christians around the world. He thanked Israel's Christian allies for their prayers and assured them that as long as Jews and Christians stand with Israel, they will prevail.
As 2023 comes to a close and we begin a new year, we at Israel Now News would like to wish our viewers a happy, healthy, peaceful, and prosperous year to come. And we would like to invite you to visit the Holy Land in 2024. As we say in Hebrew, L'Shana Haba Be'Yerushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned now for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Julie Sironi. She's the Israel liaison for Kenneth Copeland Ministries. Julie, thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely. My pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit about what is the Israel liaison for Kenneth Copeland Ministries?
So Pastor Terry and Pastor George Pearsons, Pastor Terry is the daughter-in-law of Kenneth Copeland, the founder of Kenneth Copeland Ministries. She hired me in 2015 to be a liaison between our church and the Israel community in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and then also in Israel. A part of that is being on the kind of boots on the ground, creating relationships here in Israel, looking and finding where our benevolent giving should go in the country. I do Israel tours, just kind of everything Israel. We also have an Israel class at our Kenneth Copeland Bible College that I oversee. And so basically, if it touches Israel, it comes through me.
I see you here in the land quite often. We're good friends. But this time's different. It's wartime. How does that affect you when you're coming here and you're seeing the people of Israel?
This time has been very emotional for me because, it's like you saw everything that went on. You understand that it was a huge trauma and tragedy, but the entire nation of Israel is traumatized. Like the people that I'm seeing who weren't in the Gaza border communities even, but everyone's lost someone. Everyone knows multiple people who are in Gaza fighting. Everyone is busy with trying to pick vegetables and do whatever they can do to help ease the pain and the trauma. But it's hard. It's been really hard to see.
One of the main focuses of your work is Judea and Samaria. You come to Judea and Samaria, you know the people of Judea and Samaria, you see the land of Judea and Samaria. How important is Judea and Samaria to the Christian community?
Judea and Samaria should be, I think, one of the most important things to the Christian community. We identified it as one of our three pillars. We're focused on Aliyah. We're focused on the excavations going on at the city of David. And then the third part is Judea and Samaria. Because we see in the Bible that there's you read Ezekiel, you read Isaiah, Jeremiah, you read Daniel, you see that God talks about the Jews coming home and the Jews settling the land, and specifically the mountains of Israel, which is Judea and Samaria. And so you see this, the world hates the Jews settling in their ancestral homeland. And we see our role as Christians to be a part of helping to fulfill Bible prophecy and helping the Jews be able to live where God called them to live.
You talk about anti-Semitism, but there's also in America an anti-Christian wave that we're seeing around America. Why do you think the two are connected?
I think that from time immemorial that there is a devil, Satan, people call him different things, but there is an enemy to God. And of course, the enemy to God hates God's two covenant peoples. He hates the Jewish people, and he hates the fact that, God made these promises about, even though I scattered you, I'm going to bring you home, and I'm going to bring you home, and I'm going to bless you. And so the Christians, our role to love the Jewish people, to support the nation of Israel, to be a different version of Christian than has existed the last 2,000 years. There's a complicated history between Christians and Jews, and that falls at our doorstep. But, I believe that largely, the Christian community today is understanding what our role is where Israel is concerned. And so when we align with God's chosen people and we become this force for God and for good, the enemies of God hate that.
You mentioned the city of David, and of course they unveiled the Pilgrimage Road, that amazing tunnel. And I saw a picture of the huge tunnel that Hamas is building juxtaposed with the Pilgrimage Road. And you can see one is for death and one is for war. How important is it for Christians to come here and walk that road in the city of David?
Oh, I think it's life-changing. I mean, like for a Christian to walk through the city of David and to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that, like, people say, well, did Jesus walk here? And, Zev Orenstein from the City of David always says, I'm not going to, say something that's not true, but 100%. Jesus was a Jew. He would have come up to the temple 3 times a year. This is where he would have walked. And the Bible comes to life when you're walking that road, and it really hits home the Jewish connection to this land. I mean, the United Nations can say what they want about the Muslim connection to the land, but the rocks cry out. The rocks tell the story, and the story is a Jewish story.
Julie, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Now is not the time to just, lovingly hold Israel in your heart, but now is the time for action. If you go to a church where they're not talking about Israel, they're not supporting Israel, that you don't know what's happening in Israel, then you need to find a different church. And as far as being active, I can't say what that is for you to do. It could be prayer, it could be finances, it could be coming on a solidarity mission, but do something. Do something, because God is using Israel as a dividing line in the world for good, so that it's clear there's good and there's evil, and it's a day to choose. Which side are you going to be on? Are you going to be on the Lord's side or the wrong side?
Thank you, Julie, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, wishing you a Happy New Year's. Now back to the studio.
And now, the truth from Zion.
Is peace in the Middle East possible? In recent years, the region's geopolitical landscape was rapidly changing for the better. But now Hamas has brought the process to a screeching halt, at least for the time being. On October 7, 2023, the terror organization launched a savage war on Israel. It delayed what could have been major social betterment for Jews, Muslims, and Christians in the region and throughout the world. Israel and Saudi Arabia are 2 nations that were once considered unlikely partners for peace. But in recent times, Jerusalem and Riyadh brought their relationship to new heights. In September 2023, for the first time, out loud and in public, Saudi officials discussed establishing diplomatic ties with Israel and cooperation for a safer, more prosperous region. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman told Fox News that an agreement with Israel via the Biden administration would be the biggest historical agreement since the Cold War. What brought these 2 countries together was a mutual understanding that Iran is the Middle East's biggest opponent to peace. The Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is terrorizing their citizens at home, and a nuclear-armed Iran would threaten not only the region but the entire world. Meanwhile, Israel has been focused on creating prosperity across continents. Both Israel and Saudi Arabia believe the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action Accord, or JCPOA, does very little to address serious concerns about Iran's nuclear ambitions. Both nations want to stop Iran from acquiring weapons of mass destruction, which is already causing a destabilizing arms race in the region. Iran has repeatedly declared it plans to wipe Israel off the face of the map. Saudi Arabia and Israel also understand that the JCPOA does not confront Iran's support of proxy groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis in Yemen. These terror organizations are constantly creating regional conflicts. In 2018, the Anti-Defamation League found Saudi textbooks included passages that spread hatred or violence against Jews, Christians, Shiite Muslims, women, and anybody who mocks or converts out of Islam. By 2020, those paragraphs were removed, revealing a new message of tolerance. But peace has to be practical as well as social. During the G20 summit in New Delhi, India in September 2023, Saudi Arabia and Israel proposed creating a new rail system that would link Europe with the Middle East through Israel. Leaders from the United States, India, the European Union, and Saudi Arabia unveiled not only the railway plan, but also a sea transport corridor to connect India to Europe through the Middle East. The ambitious project would create a new trade route for Israel, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The proposal was announced just 1 month before Hamas launched a barbaric massacre in Israel. Saudi Arabia also has another special project underway that could involve cooperation with Israel. It's called Noam, and it's Saudi Arabia's City of the Future, set to open in 2024. It's an ambitious megacity planned for construction in northwest Saudi Arabia near the borders of Jordan and Egypt. The vision is for it to be a hub for technology, innovation, and sustainable living with a focus on energy, biotechnology, and tourism. Saudi Arabia has expressed an interest in working with Israel because of Israel's expertise in the high-tech sector. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu played a pivotal role in establishing diplomatic channels throughout the Middle East. His relentless pursuit in creating relationships with leaders in the region has paved the way for the possibility of peace. However, Iran is actively working to derail all of this progress. The radical Shiite nation views an Israeli-Saudi alliance as a threat and has sought to undermine any chances of success.
The horrific attack on October 7 was orchestrated by Iran. Iran knew that Israel was close to making peace with Saudi Arabia, and they saw this as a threat on their influence in the Middle East. Iran instructed Hamas to attack Israel to thwart peace in the region.
A peace accord between Saudi Arabia and Israel would mark a symbolic cessation of the Arab boycott against Israel. There are 22 member states in the Arab League. A deal with Saudi Arabia would mean that 7 out of 22 have penned peace agreements with Israel and are open to strengthening relations with a Jewish state. As we witness these remarkable developments unfolding, we hope for a future where peace prevails over strife in the Middle East. Up next, the ICJ Report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
Shalom and greetings here from Israel. I want to wish you a very blessed new year here from the city of Jerusalem. And allow me to read to you a powerful passage that we find in the book of Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 18, where the man of God says, "Let us arise and build. Let us arise and build." And I want to throw this Rhema word of God to you at the beginning of this new year 2024. Let us arise and build. And I want to give you 2 very practical arenas where we need to arise as people of God and where we need to build and rebuild. Number 1, let us rebuild the spiritual foundations of our lives. Without doubt, as we are entering in the year 2024, our world is in a state of turmoil. Wars are in Europe, wars are in the Middle East. Many things are shaking in the nations, even where we might be residing right now. And it is the more important that the foundations of our lives are set on a proper rock foundation. Let us, number 1, rebuild the foundation of prayer in our lives. Let us be in this year 2024 people that are more dedicated to personal prayer than ever before. It is quite remarkable, if you look at the life of Jesus, that even though he was the Son of God, prayer played a central role in his life. Many times he isolated himself to a silent, desolate place to seek his Father in heaven. And the outcome of those prayer times were amazing. One time he was praying on the mountain, and it was the moment when he chose the 12 disciples that would change the entire world. Another time we read he was in a desolate place praying, and as he returned, the power of God was there to heal. Prayer unlocks the gates of heaven. Prayer unlocks the potential of God in your life. Let us arise and rebuild the foundation of prayer in our life. Secondly, let us arise and rebuild the foundation of the Word of God. I want to encourage you as you enter in 2024 to spend more time in the Word of God than ever before. It is the bread by which we live, but also it is a powerful weapon as we are praying and interceding for our families, for our nations, and even for our personal life. But thirdly, I want to give you a very practical application how we can arise and rebuild. Just a few days after October 7, I had the privilege to visit with a special delegation the communities that just a few days earlier have been destroyed and attacked by Hamas. And I saw with my own eyes the destruction, this trail of horror that was left behind by those vicious Hamas terrorists. And I want to call upon all of us today, let us arise and rebuild. Let us arise and rebuild those communities in Israel that used to be like the Garden of Eden, but have become a place of desolation today. Let us arise and build those forests around those communities that have been destroyed by this current war. And the International Christian Embassy, for that purpose, we adopted a special ICJ nature park right there at the border to Gaza. Let us arise and rebuild those communities in the south like Be'eri or Kfar Aza to give a future and a hope to the people who live there in a place and a state of tranquility and peace. Let us give them a future and a hope and show them that Christians around the world care for Israel in this critical moment. Let us together arise and build. Let us build the land of Israel, but also let us build the foundations of our spiritual life with God. And as we do this, I am sure that we will master the storms that might face us in 2024, and we will be a blessing for the people around us. God bless you as together we will arise and build.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rome reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.